Speaking of the tournament, Wally Szczerbiak back in 1999 at Miami of Ohio, as it was called back then, got to the Sweet 16, college basketball analyst for CBS and an analyst for the Knicks as well. What was it like after the first weekend back in 1999 when you go back to campus? How crazy is it, and are you treated differently?
Absolutely. Coming from a small school like Miami, obviously we had a good senior season and we were winning basketball games, so we had sellouts at our arena. But when we got back, I remember at like 1 a.m. after flying home from New Orleans, there was a bunch of students waiting for us right in front of the arena when we were going into our locker room. It was absolute pandemonium. I remember the next day heading to class, it was just like I've never felt more like a rock star than those couple days on campus. I mean, honestly, it was amazing. It was a whirlwind also with a lot of interviews. Our sports information director did a great job of organizing our interviews because there was a lot of national stuff coming in. And we just needed to still stay focused on winning because we had a game to play on Thursday that week against Kentucky in the Sweet 16. So it was a memorable week, memorable time, and one I'll cherish and never forget.
Who was on Kentucky at that time?
They had a great team. Jamal McGlure came off the bench, Tayshaun Prince, Saul Smith, Keith Bogans, Wayne Turner. I mean, they had Bradley was the center that started, Scott Padgett. I think they had 5-6 pros. And I think they ended up losing to Michigan State, though, in the regional final to go to the Final Four.
What advice would you give Florida Atlantic or Princeton? Because you can surprise people, maybe one game, maybe two. Now you get a week to prepare for Princeton and Florida Atlantic.
Well, I think what they're doing, they're very capable. They have to just play their game and play at a high level. What I've been so impressed with Princeton is they went up against one of the biggest, strongest, most physical and size dominant teams in the NCAA tournament in Arizona and the whole entire country, quite frankly, and they out-rebounded them. And they also had 6 blocks to their 1. So to me, that shows that they can match up physically, size-wise, strength-wise, all those controllable kind of statistics where normally a smaller school will get dominated on the boards. They'll look small. They'll be getting their shots blocked when they go into the paint. But as far as Princeton goes, that's not how it was. In their second round game, they completely dominated that game too. They dominated the boards big time. So I think if they just continue to play their game, play physical, they have a great chance to move on because that team is old, that team is mature, that team is seasoned, that team has been in really, really close games. Every single year, it seems like they're in a final possession game to make it to the NCAA tournament against Yale, against Cornell, against who knows, one of those other schools that are in the Ivy League that are really top-notch basketball. So Florida Atlantic the same way. They're an old, mature team. They bring a bunch of guys off the bench that can really play.
Well, you look at these games. Michigan State is now favored against K-State. Arkansas getting 4.5 against Connecticut. Florida Atlantic getting 5 against Tennessee. And Gonzaga is getting 1.5 against UCLA. What do you think happens in those games?
Listen, I would, Tom Izzo, in March, the only team left standing in the Big Ten, it's incredible what he's able to get his teams to do, come the NCAA tournament. I kept my eye on them all season long, honestly. I thought they were going to really peak at the end because they have a really talented roster. They fit very well. And, I would have to pick them in that game. I think the Zags are going to get UCLA. I just think UCLA is too banged up. They've had some injuries they're dealing with. They're a little bit thin. They're a really tough team, though. So UCLA is going to have to be ready to battle, especially on the interior and on the boards. But I think I like UCLA in that one. I like Florida Atlantic. I just think Tennessee, without Zakai Ziegler, they totally just, made it a street fight against Duke, and they just punked them. They really did. I mean, Duke did not handle the physicality well. Duke is a freshman type team, a little bit inexperienced. And when Tennessee got their mitts on them and really manipulated them physically, I think they're not going to be able to do that against Florida Atlantic. So I like Florida Atlantic in that one. And the last one, Arkansas is an outstanding basketball game. I mean, that's going to be a really fun one. So I think Arkansas can pull off that upset. What they did against Kansas, Coach Musselman is a tremendous NCAA tournament coach. He's a great in-game coach as far as in-game adjustments go. They have freshmen that are really talented, that are playing to really elevate their stock in the NBA draft. So I think I like Arkansas now.
Okay, let me go back to Gonzaga and UCLA. You like Gonzaga to get UCLA because they're banged up?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
All
I
right.
think the Zags are flying under the radar. They've made it to the championship game. I don't know if they're that good to win it all this year, but I don't think a lot of people realize how good they are because they haven't been number one, number two all season long, like they've been the last couple seasons. They've been floating around 12, 13, 15, but they were playing in a really good league. The West Coast Conference was a lot better than it's been in years past. So I think the Zags get that one.
We're talking to Wally Szczerbiak, CBS college basketball analyst. Should John Calipari be on the hot seat?
I don't think so. I just think John Calipari over the years, he's had to kind of adjust to the landscape of college basketball. And right now, the landscape of college basketball is completely changing. And, I think he did a pretty good job this year. They were a couple made threes away from being in the Sweet 16 again. He always gets his team playing well at the end of the season. I think he's got to retool. And I think with the new rules, the transfer portal, the NIL, I don't know why you wouldn't want to go play at Kentucky. So he should have his pick of what players, to have moving forward. And with his track record, his success in years past, I don't think there's any reason to move on from John Calipari. I think he's a great coach.
What are your expectations for Rick Pitino at St. John's?
Wow, I am excited. I just saw a tweet that popped up on my timeline. He said, any former players who want to stop by the campus and watch workouts this summer, you're more than welcome. And I'm going to reach out to Rick and be like, Rick, I didn't play there. I would have loved to, but I wasn't recruited by you guys. But, St. John's is deep in my heart. That's the team I rooted for growing up as a kid, all those St. John's teams, with Chris Mullen and company, Malik Sealy and all those teams, Coach Carnesecca, just, the Big East when it was really rolling as the Big East. So I am just ecstatic that Rick got the job. It's about time that St. John's is competitive again at a national level. The Big East is a wonderful conference to watch, and it continues to get better and better. And I think adding Coach Cooley to Georgetown and Rick Pitino to St. John's only elevates that conference even more. And I can't wait to be a part of it and go to games at the Garden. And I hope that St. John's can get back to the tournament and start winning some games in the NCAA tournament.
When you were in the NBA and there would be calls that, stars would get. There'd be favoritism. How often would that happen where you go, wait, I didn't touch Jordan. Why am I getting called for a foul?
I got to be honest. I think when I played, I had no issue with the referees. When you look back at my career, I maybe only had 2 or 3 technicals in 10 years. I just felt like our referees were the best on the planet. You were able to sit down and not sit down. You were able to go over to them and talk to them. You were able to discuss things. The rules were laid out very, very fairly. I think one of the reasons why there are some issues with refereeing now is there is a little bit of a turnover and there is some change. Some of those veterans officials that I was, was officiating my games 15 years ago, they've kind of moved on. They've retired. They've gone up into different job descriptions and stuff like that. And it takes time as an NBA official to build a chemistry with the players. You have to get used to how certain guys play. You have to get used to when, James Harden gets contact, when Trae Young gets contact, and you have to have experience. And I think that's one of the issues that's going on right now. Another thing is the few tweaks in rules that they continue to make each summer. I think it kind of throws the players and it throws the referees off because, they start calling it a certain way at the beginning of the season. Then come playoff time, it becomes way more physical and they let all that stuff go. And coaches are on their sidelines saying to themselves, where's the consistency of how the game was being called at the beginning of the season to now? So I think the main thing, and I know Tom Thibodeau talks about it all the time in his press conferences, he just wants it consistent. He wants the same call made for both teams on both ends. And then you can't say a word. And the officials are trying their best. They're held to a very high criteria. But I just think it takes experienced officials to really get those close calls right. Did
you face Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron?
Oh, yeah. I was 3 years against Jordan when he was in Washington with the Wizards. So fortunately, we used to get some wins against those guys when I was with the Timberwolves. We played them twice. And then Kobe, we faced him in the playoffs 3 times with Kobe and Shaq. They knocked us out of the Western Conference Finals, second round and first round in like 3 out of 5 years when I was with the Timberwolves. And then LeBron, yeah, of course, I played against him in Cleveland, and then I played with him in Cleveland for 2 years in '08 and '09.
The difference between those three is on the court is what?
Well, they're 3 of the top of all time. I still put Jordan as number 1 just because every time he had to win a game, he did. And the dominance that he had over that era, winning 6 championships in 6 years with the 6 opportunities. I mean, that is just unbelievable to me. And he had that. The mental game, I think, was second to none.
Did he make you nervous? Did he scare you?
No, he didn't. Because again, when I saw him, it was in Washington, and he wasn't quite the same dominant force.
Oh, okay.
You would go into Washington and you would think, okay, we can get a win because they weren't a great team. They were maybe a 500 team, sub 500 team. So there wasn't fear at that point.
What about prime Kobe?
Now, I fear Jordan on the golf course. When I play with him down in Florida, he instills fear in me down there. That's for sure, because he could play. And we're both 4 handicaps, and he kicks my butt because I'm not used to Florida golf.
How about prime Kobe?
No, I think who instilled more fear in me and our team was Shaq, honestly. They complemented each other wonderfully, obviously, but Shaq was the guy that we really feared on the scouting report. Kobe obviously was going to make the big shots down the stretch, but you needed a game plan for Shaq. Like, there was just no force like that ever. And, he just dominated the interior. And if you didn't have 3 guys ready to double team him when he caught the ball, he was going to score every time he touched it.
Any downside to being LeBron's teammate?
No. LeBron was an outstanding teammate. He was an outstanding father, outstanding friend, outstanding teammate. Absolutely loved my time with him in Cleveland. He brought out the best in me, especially at that point in my career when I was kind of on the downturn, dealing with injuries, couldn't play a lot of minutes, but I had a great role as a 3-point shooter and a stretch 4-man. And we had a great season, winning 66 games. So LeBron is a joy to be with as a person off the floor, as his teammate, and also obviously on the floor. He makes everyone better.
I know that you're an analyst for the New York Knicks. How real are the Knicks this year?
Oh, they're real. I'm telling you. They continue to surprise me, it seems like, every night out. This team just keeps getting better. Their average age is 23 and a half years old. Jalen Brunson has been one of the best free agent signings in New York sports history. He has completely transformed this franchise, turned around this franchise, solidified the point guard position, which has been an issue with the Knicks for, seems like, 15 years. And Julius Randle's back to playing like a first, second team All-NBA player. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do in the playoffs, but getting back into the playoffs is a start, and we'll see if they can win a couple rounds.
Good to talk to you, Wally. Have fun today. We appreciate you joining us.
Anytime, Dan. All the best. Enjoy the game.
Wally Szczerbiak, CBS Sports. We'll take a break. We'll update our poll results, and we have our play of the day coming up next year. Dan Patrick Show.